Well, as you can see, it's snowing here, and I'm thrilled about it. I love the snow. I've really missed it a lot. You know, it's early January 2025 here. Just walking down in the woods and in the fields along the creek behind me. I'm taking some time to really enjoy this snow and reflect on what it means to me and just winter in general. Kind of catching up with myself. It's been a busy few weeks here. Well, a few months really, between the rush of, packing and shipping season, flowing right into the holidays, seed collection, and then also I just moved my house. There's a couple houses here on this property. I moved from one house into the one next door. So don't panic. The nursery is not going anywhere. I'm still on the same farm. Basically just, moving out of the shared housing location, the main cabin that cabin house, whatever you want to call it, that I've been living out of here on the farm for the past 8 or 9 months. And since Corey and Kara have now moved on to their new home, the place that they were living in is vacant. So I've moved into that because it can just be me. I won't have to share with other people coming and going. Just felt like maybe it would be interesting to share an update on some more personal stuff and just kind of what's been going on in the nursery, on the farm, at home, and all that. Something about the snow and the winter really makes you want to pause and reflect on these sorts of things. And also, with this whole YouTube journey, I do find myself wanting to share more about what's going on in my life. It's a kind of an ongoing experiment to try to figure out what the balance feels right to me, and also I don't know how much of this is interesting to you guys, but if you are interested, I'm going to keep rambling a little bit and we'll see how it goes. So some of you may know this, some of you don't, but I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania outside of Philadelphia, and 3 years ago I decided to leave to explore the opportunity to do some nursery work, some farm stuff on my grandparents' farmland down in North Carolina in Cedar Grove, just north of Durham. And I was down there for a little over 2 years, kind of hopping around various living situations. There's nowhere to live on their farm, so I was kind of living nearby and driving out to the farm, trying to build out the nursery and just explore what do I want to do with plants, with farming. There was a lot to learn, networking and meeting people and just learning, a lot of volunteering on farms and all that sort of stuff. And I've documented some of this along the way, and some of it I haven't. And that's the little brief story on that. Anyway, I'm happy to go into more details if anybody's interested in any of that. But point being, I partly because of the living situations changing, and partly just because of just not feeling at home there in the southeast in North Carolina, I decided to move. And I've talked about this in other videos. I tried to detail a lot of the physical process of moving the nursery from Cedar Grove, North Carolina, up here into Virginia, just outside of Martinsville, kind of in the southwest part of the state right here at the start of the mountains. Kind of what's on my mind today is that, a big part of why I made that move was that I felt like I wasn't getting enough winter down in North Carolina. I felt like moving to the southeast from eastern Pennsylvania was too hard for me emotionally, just in terms of I miss winter. I haven't seen snow since the last winter I was in Pennsylvania 3 years ago. I mean, I've seen dustings here and there, but this is an actual, we've got about an inch on the ground right now. We might get another few inches. Some of you guys up in the Northeast might laugh and say that still really ain't real snow. But to me, this is real snow, and especially compared to what I have had, which is basically nothing the past 3 years, this is real snow. And I'm thrilled. I'm super excited. And so the experience of coming out here, seeing this snow, is kind of, for me, validating this move north. And, not that I've had crazy doubts about the move. I've felt pretty confident and positive about this decision for a while now. But it's just another validating experience, basically. But, it was a lot of work getting the nursery and moving it all the way up here. There was a lot of lost time, or I try not to think about it as lost time, but it was a big investment in time and labor and materials getting everything moved up here. And a lot of new opportunities have come being in this place. I think it's certainly been worth it by many different means. Anyway, there's a lot of ways to look at the outcome of this move. And if you can view it through all sorts of different lenses, and I think there have been many benefits, But it was a big sacrifice also to pull it off. And so it's nice to have this validation of I really have been missing winter. It feels really good to get a little bit of it back. I'm not sure, I would say I'm actually pretty confident that I'm not going to make a permanent home out of Bassett. I'm here at least for the next year, possibly the next several. And I think I'm going to land close to here. I think I would like to get a little bit higher up in the hills, a little bit further north, and hopefully as climate change continues to progress, that will lock me into a place that at least gets a decent chance of 1 or 2 snows in the winter and still get some cold temperatures, I'm hoping, as we move into the unknowns of the future. Things could change. I could be totally wrong. When I came down to North Carolina, I was pretty certain I was going to stay there for a long time. And a few years into that, I decided, nope. So who knows? I'm not ruling out I could wind up staying in Bassett a long time. I could wind up moving really far away. I don't know. But the current thinking is that I do like this area a lot. And I'm thinking I want to settle somewhere relatively close to here. But again, gosh, the snow is awesome. There's something, for those of you who grew up with snow, the stillness of a snowstorm is something that is unique. There's just there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some of you can relate, whether it's specifically about winter or not. I think we all go through these big transitions, big decisions, and moments in life where you're feeling torn, pulled between 2 places. Like I said, it was not an easy time coming to the decision to pull the trigger and move out here from Cedar Grove. It was also not an easy decision to pull the trigger and leave Pennsylvania. But, a lot of reflection and just kind of trying to feel where I was being pulled. I came to those decisions, I made them, and for better or worse, I'm here. I think it's for the better. But anyway, now I'm here. And, like I said, probably everybody goes through these types of big moments and decisions in life, and it's never easy knowing what to do. But ultimately, you make the best choice you can, and you just move into it. And, one of the things that I'm having to constantly reteach myself is just to not view it as permanent, to view it as trying things on. I moved to North Carolina for a while. I tried it on, learned a lot. It didn't work. I got to take all those experiences with me, go somewhere else and try it again somewhere else in a different way, And now I'm doing that, and eventually I might get pulled to move somewhere else. But as I'm going through the process of making this video too, it's also I'm reflecting on, man, it has been busy. One of the reasons I look forward to winter is because it's a forced slowdown. The weather gets to a certain point, you don't have a whole lot of daylight, it's cold, it's wet, it's snowy, windy, rainy, and there's only so much work that you can do while the plants are dormant. In the southeast, what I found is that most of winter, unless it's actively raining, you can be out doing stuff, It's just, the ground doesn't really ever freeze down there. Honestly, it still has hardly frozen here. Outside of Martinsville, I'm in, Bassett, Virginia. And when you're in that type of climate where the ground doesn't freeze, some of you who grew up with this, and those in the Northeast, maybe you don't know, it feels like it never stops. It feels like there's productive outside work you can be doing in the entirety of winter. I really feel a need to take advantage of that cooler weather when it's not blastingly hot, to do all sorts of stuff, moving around, mulch, transplanting things, building new beds. Whereas, if it gets a little bit colder, you're kind of forced to stay inside and catch up with yourself, do reflecting, maybe do research. There's all sorts of things I love looking into, reading and watching videos and podcasts and stuff, learning about a lot of tree crop stuff, but also other things that I'm interested in. And having that downtime baked into the year, it's important, I think. It's important. And so I'm in this weird position right now where we're getting snow. We're getting more winter now here. I'm getting more winter now than I have the past few years. But because of the nature of the busy season, October, November of seed collection and getting trees pulled and shipped and all that, and then combined that with, it kind of rolls right into the holidays. And then I moved over the holidays, basically from the shared house that I was in on the property to the trailer next door. Yeah, so, I don't know. As I'm going out throughout the process of filming this video, I am having a little bit of a challenge deciding how much to share about the living situation. I really don't feel like there's any harm in sharing the information with you guys. I guess there's a lot of details, and I don't know how entertaining it will be. Maybe that's not the lens I should be thinking about this from. I'm just trying to kind of share the experience with you all, because the living situation, it's all part of how I'm making the nursery happen. And that's really been one of my goals, is to share pretty openly what it looks like to try to get a nursery started. The way that I'm doing it, it's going to look different for anyone who gets into it. But so just given, my personality, my resources, my experiences, my, just the, my lot in life, what it has looked like to get this nursery started. And one of the major challenges since moving from Pennsylvania down here into the Southeast has been getting a living situation while I'm trying to explore farming and doing the nursery stuff. It's been challenging. Like I mentioned, when I was in North Carolina, I never lived on the farm because there were no dwellings. And so one of the challenges there was, paying a rather high price for rent, and because that's what rent costed in the area, and having to commute out to the farm was kind of challenging. And so one of the things that was really important to me in making the move up here to Bassett was being able to live where I'm doing most of my farming and nursery activities. So this farm property that, again, I haven't talked about this a lot, but it's owned by a group of friends who they're friends, and also I'm friends with them. And, they kind of came together, formed a little LLC, and bought this farm. They all live about an hour and a half away down in North Carolina. None of them at this time are living permanently on the land, but they bought this property, and it has 3 houses on it. And at the time that I decided to come out to the land, 2 of the 3 houses were rented out. One of the houses was Corey and Kara, who, as I mentioned in the chicken videos, they, for various reasons, just left. It's been bittersweet saying goodbye to them. But since that house has opened up, that's what I've now moved into. So it's on the same property. I'll try to point to it later on in the video when I walk back up. But that's where I'm living at now. And so, the nursery, again, not going anywhere. I'm still living at the nursery, just moving next door. So it has not been nearly as big of a push as last year, moving my house and my nursery, but still, moving the house, all the furniture and the kitchen and all that stuff. It's a lot, moving always is a lot. And so that kind of coming on the heels of the busy season has been challenging. But just a few brief details I feel like I glazed over. The past 8 or 9 months, I've been living in that 3rd house that was not rented out. We kind of call that the shared house. It's a 1-bedroom. It's a really nice space for 1 or 2 people. And it's shared in the sense that whenever anyone from the group wants to come up, that's their place to stay. And so there are times where there'd be a bunch of us, packing in for the weekend, and then I'd be alone for most of the weekdays and such. There were times when I would vacate, to allow more people to come up. And luckily I have family nearby, so I can just duck away, go stay with my parents for a few days if I need to. And that's been okay. It's been as expected. That was the deal that we all worked out when I came up here. There's been some challenges and some hardships, associated with sharing that space and having to leave at certain times, but it's been okay. And so that's kind of just the situation there. But it feels really good to be having my own space again, to be moved into this little, the Corey and Kara's trailer. It still kind of feels like their house. I've only been in it for a few days, and the past 8 or 9 months, it's been their house, that's where they lived. So, yeah, snow seems to be slowing down now. The disappointing part about this storm, which, like many winter storms, it's going to transition into freezing rain and a lot of ice. And, sometimes you just get snow and it's pretty, but oftentimes you get freezing rain. And that's part of winter. So for that, I'm going to want to be inside the house with some food and drinks ready to go. Hot drinks like tea. I actually do not drink any alcohol at this stage in my life. I drank a lot when I was in college. Haven't had any in a few years now, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, yeah, and, nothing crazy happened there. It's mostly just, it's not fun anymore. Even small amounts of alcohol seem to my stomach gets upset easily and I get headaches very easily. So even a little bit feels dangerous to me anymore. And so I just don't consume it. And there's certainly more to that story that, maybe I'll go into it another time, but that's the basic gist. Anyway, moving on from that. Yeah, moving on from that. What else? Well, basically just I bring it all up because it's on my mind and I felt like maybe it'd be interesting to share. And I think that has been a big piece of my story trying to get this nursery established, is that I've been very lucky to have access to land. My grandparents had farmland. I could just go down there and start a garden and start a nursery. I've got friends that have this land in Bassett. I'm allowed to just come here and start doing nursery stuff, gardening. The land is just there, available for me to, enter into a relationship with and work on. The challenging part, and a lot of people don't have that, right? Like land access is very, very difficult, especially for younger folks right now. It's hard. And so it's not lost on me that, these are big opportunities that I've had. At the same time, the living situation has been challenging, always having to either pay high rent and commute, or here the rent is very affordable, but, it was this somewhat challenging shared living situation. And now it's a lot simpler because I'm into this other house and it's still very affordable rent. I'm at the same place and now I have a place, it's on my own. So I guess just saying, I don't know, that's been part of it, is putting up with less than ideal living situations for the temporary. I don't want to live like that my whole life, but for a few years, putting up with it, because that's how I got access to land, was living in those sort of non-conventional living situations. There's other ways to do it too. I looked into wolfing. What does that stand for? It's like Worldwide Organic Farmer or something or other. Basically just there's lots of farmers that have maybe like a loft above their barn or a trailer parked on the farm, and folks will go out and volunteer, learn, be a farm worker, usually part-time in the wolfing system, and work in exchange for food, vegetables, that sort of stuff, and free rent. I don't know. There's lots of ways to go about it, but land access and finding a place to live is hard. I don't want to just dismiss it and say, oh, there's tons of opportunity. It's hard. It really is. It's one of those things where there is some opportunity and there's a big need, especially for younger people to be getting into ag. We really need that. But oftentimes, you have to give something up. You have to give a lot up. If you compared to just working a conventional job and living somewhere else in the city. Some of the places I've lived, I have not had internet access. I've been far away from food and that sort of thing. There's all sorts of stuff. I was living in Hillsborough, North Carolina for a while. That felt I was way too far in town, the road noise and just the traffic and being far from the farm. That was really, for me, challenging. For other people, that would have probably been less challenging. But when I was there, I was close to food. I had internet. I moved out closer to the farm in North Carolina at one point, and my commute was much shorter. But for a while, I didn't have internet. It was a relatively far drive to the store and all that. Here in Bass, it's kind of a happy medium. I'm pretty close to a regular, Food Line grocery store. If I want to get to like a nice co-op or organic, health food type store, that's pretty far from where I live. There's not a whole lot of options like that. There's a lot of fast food around here, that sort of thing. I didn't have internet for the first 6 or 7 months that I was here, but we now have internet installed on the property. So that's been very, very nice. But yeah, this is probably getting kind of long. That is a look into some more personal things that have been going on, kind of recently, but also over the past few years. And it feels, like I said, important to share. Maybe it's relevant, but also just because I think there's this habit on social media. Everybody posts their videos of their farm and they post mostly the successes, and people don't show the messy stuff when the house is dirty, the sink is full of dishes, you're having to live without internet, or all these sorts of things that just don't get talked about in the homesteading, gardening, farming, social media community as a whole. It does get talked about. There are people talking about it, but it doesn't feel like a major part of the mainstream conversation. And so, yeah, it has always felt important for me to share those moments. I think I could do a better job at sharing some of the messy stuff, and that's what this is, trying to move into that more. And also just looking for an excuse to walk and talk and enjoy the snow. I would say a solid, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. Let's see, I was collecting some eggs. Yeah, they got snowed on a little bit. My footprints from when I walked down to go get these eggs are almost completely obscured by the falling snow. We've been getting a lot of hay lately too, a lot of biomass for 2025 projects. We'll talk more about that soon.